Alright folks, next lesson on soils. Okay, we did a simple introduction. You should have made all those notes from the PowerPoint and the video. Well, the PowerPoint was in the video yesterday. Okay, so we're going to continue on today looking at something called a soil profile. Okay, you can see the heading here and the horizons within a soil profile. Alright, very, very simple stuff. I'm on page 248 of Bonnet. Okay, just a little bit here, we're going to fly through. Okay, so most soils consist of three layers called horizons. All right, the top layer, the horizon, the A horizon, contains the finest soil particles. So essentially, let me just move down onto this. All right, here's your soil profile, and it's made up of three basic horizons, and there's some extra ones as well. The three basic are always A, B, and C. Very simple. Here's the surface. You go down deeper and deeper. Okay, so we'll go through these in a little bit of detail. Okay, just what's in each one. So the top layer, the A horizon, contains the finest soil particles. All right, the humus in a soil is usually in the upper part of the A horizon. So I just highlighted humus, and upper part, and drew little arrows. To be honest, you can see it's labeled here. The humus is on the surface. Okay, then the A horizon is below, then the B, then the C. All right, so the A or the humus layer is usually actually on the surface. All right. Now, on top of this, there may be decomposing vegetation. So I said on top, decomposing vegetation. So you got your decomposing vegetation, that turns into humus, then you got A, B, and C. Okay, so it's just very simple layers. The layer below the A horizon is called the B horizon. Very simple. This is also called a subsoil. All right, so B horizon, subsoil. Let me draw a little arrow between those because you need to know that. All right. It's the halfway in its formation between A and C. That's all it is. All right, so it's got some bits from the parent material or the bedrock coming up from C. It's got some minerals and soil particles coming down from A. So it's somewhere in between. Very simple. And the C horizon, which is the parent rock or the geology which lies below the B horizon as shown. All right. Now, I've just drawn a little arrow, as you can see here, coming down to the figure, and I just highlighted that. Okay, so alright, A is soil, B is subsoil, C parent rock. Okay, so you'd plant and grow all your crops in this top A horizon. Now, something else I want to look at is the impact of things like vegetation, climate, time, geology, and so on. You should have finished that little task with the 4 boxes where you sorted or the 10 other little boxes into them. Alright, so those factors, climate, animals, vegetation, geology, they all feed into forming the different soils which we look at later in today's lesson. All right, so first of all, the depths of these soil horizons vary according to the type of climate. So climate will affect how thick or how wide each of these, well, especially the top ones, are. So I want depths of horizons, types of climate. So the climate will affect that. All right, I'm just going to jump up onto the next page and again look at some more. The parent rock, or the geology, influences soil type mainly in respect to the size of the grains. So whilst climate affects the depth, all right, the geology or the parent rock at the very bottom influences the soil size, the grains that make it up. Okay, climate and vegetation also influence soil type. All right, so we'll look at 4 types in a little bit, but again, it's the type of vegetation found in there. So as the vegetation dies and breaks down, okay, it sits on top of that A horizon, and whatever is in the vegetation will then obviously be transferred to the soil, right, cause or influencing what type it is. Finally, then, climate also plays an important role in determining what type of vegetation it is that an area has. So again, we should start seeing, we've covered lots of topics now, okay, you should start drawing all of these together and seeing how climate and vegetation and soils and ecosystems and all of this stuff is wound together. Okay, so depending on the type of climate, you'll have a certain type of vegetation. For example, if we look down here at this one, okay, we got a tundra landscape. Okay, cold landscape, we've only got coniferous trees, the little pine trees are Christmas trees. Okay, that means the only vegetation that falls onto the surface of the soil. All right, if I jump back over to here, the only vegetation that falls here is these little pines. All right, and then that will mean what nutrients, that will depict or influence what nutrients gets down into A and B. So coniferous trees are very acidic. Okay, so that brings it down here. It makes the soil very acidic then. So our pH level is affected. You should know pH from science. That's all I want to do from Bunnet. I'm just going to jump over to New Wider World quickly. Okay, so on page 253 here in New Wider World, there's a couple of little bits just to look at as well for today. Our formation, again, we got 2 bullet points. Parent or underlying rock is weathered to give a layered or loose broken material known as regolith, which we've already talked about. All right. So it comes from the underlying geology, that sea horizon, which we look at over here, and then also the addition of water, gases, living organisms, and decayed vegetation. They are all the things that add up to make your soils. Depending on the combination of these, how much water there is, what type of vegetation, how many living organisms, and the type of geology underneath, those things will combine to make a certain type or different type of soil. All right, so moving on to this green box, it's very important. This is your soil profile. This is what a soil profile looks like. Again, just like in Bunnet, the surface down to the bottom, and the profile is made up of different horizons. Again, A, B, and C. Now, I've just labeled them as horizons. What you might see here is a little bit of a better description. All right. You also see A has a dotted line where it's divided into 2 different bits. Okay, so at the very surface where things grow and where we walk, you have your decaying vegetation. That breaks down into our humus layer just here. Okay, and then the action of water, our capillary action, all right, and our leaching, they will bring material down and back up and move minerals around A and B. All right, so first of all, dead vegetation and dead animal matter, that mixes together to make our humus layer, rotten material which soaks down into the soil, and then further rainfall and heat and so on, capillary action of water moving up, and leaching of those minerals being brought down into the soil. All right, you got A, then B. So A actually would be a lighter color due to this leaching. All the stuff is pushed down or soaked down as far as it can. B then would be quite a bit of a brighter color due to all of those minerals being washed down there. All right, C is where the parent material is, and it starts to get broken up. So they are your main horizons. All right, and the horizons add up to make a soil profile. Again, just to go over, if you couldn't figure out the little box task that looked like this from the other lesson, I didn't have topography, I had geology, flora and fauna, climate and time. You should be able to answer that now using page 253, so you can go back and check your answers for that. Okay, I had acidity, mineral content and permeability in here, the exact same point here for time, and then I had these points in for climate and these exact points for flora and fauna. Okay, so you can finish off that with the correct answers from there. All right, last little thing then, just about soil profile. Again, profile is so it is a vertical section that shows different layers known as horizons. There's your definition for soil profile. All right, apart from the surface layer, which consists mainly of fallen leaves and partly decayed vegetation, there are 3 main horizons: A, B, and C. Okay, so you got A, B, and C, and you've got this dead, decaying vegetation sitting up on top of A. Now, just before we move on to the PowerPoint, okay, however, not all soils have not all soils have the 3 horizons, nor are they clear-cut boundaries like in the diagrams we saw. All right, so it's not a perfect world. They kind of are all mashed together, but in general, soils do show these layers, okay, or these strata of different compositions.